Muscle. We all crave it, we all want it. It has been ingrained in our psyche to be the ultimate goal for men to attain in order to be attractive. Some are willing to tango with death in order to gain it. But are these risks warranted or necessary? Today we'll be looking at the negative effects of steroid abuse. Steroids are naturally occurring molecules found in nature and produced by the body, but you may know them for their abuse in the bodybuilding scene. Steroids have been long used for increasing muscle mass by men and women all around the world. Clinically, anabolic steroids are given to an individual if they have experienced muscle wasting diseases or have suffered injuries that have damaged muscular tissue to an extent where steroid use is valid. Anabolic androgenic steroids are synthetically created to replicate the naturally produced male hormone called testosterone. By reshuffling certain bonds around the ring and adding different chemical groups to the molecule, different steroids are created that have varying anabolic potential. Now, let's have a look at the chemical structures of a few common steroids. First, let's start with looking at testosterone. As you can see, testosterone has a chemical structure that is very similar to cholesterol. This is because testosterone is formed from cholesterol. Now, let's have a look at a few steroids. First, let's look at a popular steroid called anadrol. As you can see, the structure of anadrol is very similar to that of testosterone. The only difference it has is the COH group and the removal of a double bond. Here is another example. This is known as Anavar. Notice how similar the structure is to anadrol and testosterone. Now, a carbon has been removed from one of the cyclohexane rings, and some oxygen has been inserted in place. The double bond has also been removed. You can search up the chemical structures of steroids yourself, and now you should be able to see how similar they are chemically to testosterone. They have been designed this way to mimic testosterone, but also have things changed on them to increase their anabolic effects. In biochemistry, if a substance has a similar chemical structure, it will have a similar function. This is a very important rule to consider when looking at steroid structures. Now that we have looked at the structures of some popular steroids, let's have a look at how steroids work. Since you now know steroids are derived from cholesterol and have similar chemical properties to cholesterol, their mechanism of action can be simplified down. We know that cells are covered by a cell membrane that is primarily made of fat. This is to separate the internal environment of the cell from the external environment. Water cannot pass through this membrane. To demonstrate this, let's have a look at what happens when you mix water and oil together. You can try this at home too. No matter how much we mix it together, the oil and water will not be mixed. The oil will always be separated from the water and float to the top. This is because the oil contains a lot of fatty acids, which are also found in the cell membrane of a cell. Now let's see what happens when we mix oil with oil. It mixes perfectly. This is because like mixes like. Now we can apply this basic biological theory to our scenario here. Since we know cholesterol is a fatty molecule and since testosterone is derived from cholesterol, it is also a chemically fatty molecule. Thus, testosterone will easily pass through the cell membrane. Once inside the cell, there is this receptor that has a slot for a specific steroid molecule, called the steroid receptor. When the steroid binds to the steroid receptor complex will move into the nucleus of the cell, where the cell's DNA is stored. The steroid receptor complex will then bind to the DNA and act as a transcription factor to increase growth signals and increase protein synthesis by the cell. This is what causes the macroscopic growth associated with steroid use. The greater the steroid dose, the more steroid receptor complexes are formed in the cell, and the more growth and protein synthesis that will occur. The cell that undergoes growth can be any cell, but we generally will see an increase in skeletal muscle cell size. Now that we have looked at how steroids work in a molecular scale, let's have a look at how they alter human physiology to create the side effects we all know of, and to answer questions such as why do professional bodybuilders pass at such a young age? It is common knowledge that the use of steroids without a medical reason can lead to death. Many athletes have passed at a very young age due to the harsh toll steroids have taken on their bodies. Many young people do not understand the risks associated with steroid use and how it can lead to severe consequences. Firstly, let's have a look at what happens to normal testosterone production when steroids are introduced into the body. Testosterone is produced in the testes and at a normal rate in most men. The hypothalamus releases a hormone called gonadotropin-releasing hormone. This goes to the anterior pituitary gland and splits off into two different hormones called luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. These serve different functions in both men and women, but we will just be having a look at men for now. So luteinizing hormone in men is what is required to form testosterone. Low levels of luteinizing hormone will result in low levels of testosterone. Follicle-stimulating hormone is responsible for the production of gametes, or simply is responsible for the production of sperm. Now the body has an intricate system in place that will prevent it from releasing too much GnRH to form too much testosterone. When testosterone levels rise in the blood, the increases are detected by the hypothalamus and production of GnRH decreases so that more testosterone is not formed. Steroids disrupt this intricate system. The body, in essence, is a fine-tuned machine. Small disruptions to the mechanistic properties of this machine can cause large failures. Since we know steroids have a similar structure to testosterone, the body will treat it as being testosterone. Constant and prolonged exposure to steroids and the body will stop producing GnRH to combat the increased levels of what it thinks are testosterone in the blood. However, we know this is due to steroids. The body does not shut off GnRH production because it is lazy, but it's more of a fail-safe mechanism triggered by the hypothalamus. Once this system has been disrupted, it is very difficult to get it restarted once again, and it is heavily dependent on the age of the individual. Older men will have much more difficult time restarting the system compared to younger males. So what happens when you stop taking steroids? Since this system has been disrupted, it will no longer be able to produce testosterone to the same levels as it once used to. Since the hypothalamus is not releasing GnRH anymore, there will be not enough LH released and so no testosterone will be formed. There will also be no FSH formed, which will affect the creation of sperm and will lead to infertility, as there is no sperm or low sperm count. Low testosterone levels can have many problems for men. Studies have found low testosterone levels can lead to severe depressive episodes and can cause erectile dysfunction. Testosterone is also a big psychological influencer, and low levels of it have been associated with lower levels of confidence and more fearful behavior. Testosterone is also needed to maintain bone health. Low levels of testosterone can lead to arthritis and weakened bone structure. We know that steroids can kill, but what is the exact pathophysiological mechanism on how they achieve this? Let's find out. You may have read the most common way bodybuilders pass are due to heart attacks, also known as myocardial infarctions in medical terms. Now, heart attacks are a common cause of death in many people, but how do steroids increase the likelihood of having a heart attack or even a stroke? Well, the answer is once again due to the increased levels of testosterone. We know that having higher level of testosterone will inadvertently increase blood pressure. Blood pressure remains constant and is set by the brain to be around 120 over 80 millimeters mercury. So what happens when blood pressure reaches, say, 180 over 100? Well, for starters, blood pressure is the pressure at which blood moves through blood vessels, such as arteries. Blood pressure can be modulated by the heart and kidneys in scenarios where it has steered off way too much. The heart can beat faster to increase blood pressure, or the kidneys can hold more sodium to increase blood pressure. If the kidneys hold more sodium, then there is increased water retention by the body. This increases the blood volume and will also increase blood pressure. So there is a constant increase in blood pressure beyond normal levels in a steroid user. The larger you are, the bigger your organs are. This holds true for steroid users too. The heart needs to pump blood to every inch of your body to ensure it's able to function properly. The use of steroids to gain mass in a short amount of time will put stress on the heart. In response to this stress, the heart has two options. It can either adapt to the stress or it cannot adapt. If your heart is unable to adapt to the stress, you are in for some bad luck, as you will pass from a heart attack. If your heart can adapt to the stress, then congrats, because you will still pass from a heart attack just at a later date. The cells that line the heart are unable to divide and replicate, and so can only grow in response to stress. This causes thickening of the heart walls, particularly the left ventricle wall thickening. This thickening would reduce the amount of blood your heart is able to pump out to the rest of your body, as the ventricle will not be able to fill properly with blood. This obstruction of blood going into the left ventricle will eventually cause death as the heart is unable to push blood out to vital organs such as the brain. Any damage done to the heart cannot be reversed. If your heart has become enlarged due to steroid use, it will not be reversed and there are no cures available, only treatments to keep your heart going temporarily. That's it for this video. I hope I've given you some insight on how misuse of steroids can have debilitating side effects. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide whether you want to use steroids or not. I can simply only provide you with facts on how its misuse can affect you. And remember, more muscle does not equal more healthier. Muscles have very high metabolic demands and gaining excess amounts of muscle will strain your heart. And if you're still thinking of using steroids, remember, your results may differ compared to people you see on Instagram. Everyone has different genetics. Not everyone will look the same on steroids. Sure, you may gain a few kilos, but don't expect to look like an Instagram model with one cycle. If you're Joe Average at the gym, expect Joe Average results on steroids.